Hello, Sido. Welcome to the retake and remake of the Introduction to Spellbreak. That rhymed a lot more than I expected. So today, much more quickly than the first one, I'm going to try and run you through sort of the goal of the game, the types of things that exist, like the basic mechanics, um, what's available. There's a really nice tool to show us a wide variety of the different items and stuff we can find. So I'll sort of show you the types of items and like a couple of examples. And then if you have any specific questions, you can tell me, and I'm happy to go more into detail on bits and bobs. Cool. So let's jump right in then. Here we are. So this is Spellbreak. Welcome, first of all. Um, this is not the map that you actually end up playing on. This is sort of the map that you spawn on while you're waiting for a match to start, but I'll get into that in a second. But this is where we'll be looking around, and I'll be showing you some things today. Right now we're in practice mode, so there are a couple of differences from the standard mode, but basically this is what you'll see when you jump into a game. Um, so I guess to start, uh, what is the point of the game? So you'll spawn in. There are three different game modes. So you can play it solo, you can play it as a team of two in duos, or you can play it in a team of up to four in squads. And the objective of the game is to be the last man or the last group standing. Um, it is sort of a kill or be killed circumstance. So you can have up to 40 players in a lobby. So if you're playing during like peak hours and there are a lot of people playing in the ideal circumstances, you'll have a lobby of 40 people. So that's either 20 teams of two, 40 singles, or 10 groups of four. And then thereafter, you'll be exploring this larger map, and I'll show you the larger map in a bit, like the actual proper match, once we run through a little bit of it, like the intro. And so you'll spawn to this map. You'll pick a location to drop down. We'll touch on that as well. And then you scour the map looking for loot and items that you can use to make yourself stronger, make yourself viable in combat. Then you either you pick some tactic basically, and you don't need to stick to the tactic. Obviously, it's like a tactical choice, so you can switch up your decisions. But the goal is to, however you wish, use the tools you find on the island to kill other people or survive long enough that they just like die and the numbers dwindle, and then win the final fight. Um, if you can survive until the end through whatever means, then you are victorious. And so that's sort of what we've got going on. So I'm going to hop down to that big area down there, you see? You can't see them from here because they're not rendered, but there are a lot of items down there, and so I'll walk you through sort of what the different item types are, how you go about finding loot, etc. Um, yeah, see you in a sec. Hey, so as you might imagine, this is not the spot I was just pointing at. It's not a big flat piece of like stone. But I decided that there was an important pit stop to make. So actually, before we get down there, and obviously, per usual, this is not scripted. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just kind of making it happen. So when you're wandering around the world, I said you have to like scour it and find loot. So you will sometimes find loot on the ground. So like for instance, this is not just a thing in the practice mode. You will find just items sitting around. I'll go through what exactly these items are. Obviously, this looks like a pair of shoes. It is in fact a pair of shoes. This is something we call a rune. It's a magical item, and I'll tell you exactly how those work in a bit. But like so, when you're wandering around the world, you will just find random items sitting on the ground like this. Usually near ruins. Like it's harder to find them just like out on the like actual groundy ground. You'll usually find them in like structures like this. Um, Consumables, which we'll get into as well, you'll more likely find just out on the ground, but also in structures. But in any case, there's another important way that you find them not just sitting on the ground, and that's what we're going to check out next. And they've actually, so there are chests. You open the chests, they give you random items, and there was a recent change to them in this whole new visual rework. They used to all look the same, but they'd have different names. So they're gauntlet chests. Gauntlets are your weapons. Rune chests. Runes are those magic bits like this guy. And I'll sort of tell you how those work in a bit. And then item chests. Items are like boots. You can wear boots, necklaces, and belts. They all give you like passive buffs. And we'll go into that in more detail in a bit as well. So there are chests for each of these, as well as a variant called epic chests that just have a high rarity random item. And so we're going to look at all three. I don't think there's an epic chest on the practice island to show you, unfortunately, but I can show you the other three types. So we'll do that now. Excellent. So here's our first find. So this is a gauntlet chest. So when you open one of these bad boys up, it'll drop gauntlets, which we'll see in a bit. They're the weapons. You can wear 2 of them. They go in your hand slots. Quickly, so I'm going to start referencing this shortly, so I'll go over it now as well. You've got this inventory over here. So you've got 3 slots for items. This is your amulet slot, your belt slot, and your boot slot. This in the middle here, looking like that triangle we saw on the ground, is, as you might imagine, your rune slot. This is a gauntlet slot, 1 for each hand. Where you put your weapons, and these are for miscellaneous inventory slots. So you see here on the ground, we've got these potions. These are consumables. There are 4 different types at the moment. They're going to add more. These are 2 different types that you see here. And so those can go in your slots. You can also store spare items or spare runes, spare gauntlets, and you can cycle them on and off. So if you want, for some reason, to have more than 2 gauntlets, you could have an extra one. You can't use them both at once, all 3 of them at once, but you can swap one from your inventory pretty quickly onto your hand and then use it. And so that's sort of how the inventory is set up. And I'm just going to reference the inventory from now on, like where things go. So here you are. It's your little intro. But anyways, this is the gauntlet chest. We're going to go to the next one now. Haha! Cool. So you've probably not seen it, but this has been extremely elusive. I've been running around this gosh darn island looking for an item chest to show you, but we've just found one. So here it is. So this is our cute little boxy boy, the item chest. So, like I was saying earlier, so your items are going to be your necklaces, your belts, and your boots. And I feel like this is not a thing I've explained about the chest yet. So I said that they drop random items. I'm going to start referring to everything as objects, though, except for items specifically. So from this point on, I should have done it earlier, but items is just going to mean necklaces, belts, and boots. And so objects is just anything you can find on the ground. Potions, items, gauntlets, runes. So the chest, any type of chest you open, any of the 3 types of chests we've seen, can drop 3 objects. They will drop 3 objects, 100% drop 3 objects. The objects are semi-random, though, so you don't know what you're going to get. When you open an item chest, you know for a fact that one of those 3 objects will be either a necklace, a belt, or a boot, but the other 2 could be a rune, a gauntlet. They can't be potions, though. If I open a gauntlet chest, same sort of deal. One of them will 100% be a gauntlet, but the other 2 objects might be an item or a rune. And a rune chest, same deal. Rune 100% is going to be one of them. The others could be a gauntlet or an item. Or, for instance, an item chest could drop 3 items. An item chest, or a gauntlet chest could drop 3 runes. Sorry. Jesus Christ, I'm stumbling over myself. A gauntlet chest could drop 3 gauntlets, or it could drop like 2 gauntlets and a boot. So 100% one of the items is, or one of the objects, is going to be the type of the chest. And then the other 2 are random. Let's actually just open this one as an example. So when we open it up, it's going to have this pretty animation, and then we're going to see it dropped a belt, which is an item, and then it dropped a gauntlet and a rune. But it could have dropped 2 belts, a gauntlet, or it could have dropped a belt and 2 runes. But it could not have dropped 2 gauntlets and a rune. It would have to drop at least one thing that's an item, because it's an item chest. I know that was a little bit confusing, and I probably didn't do the best job of explaining it, but I hope that helped some. So let's finally actually bop down to that place that I said we were going to. I'll see you again in a sec. Hey, so this is hopefully the last time I hold us from going to that place that I keep saying we're going to end up, and I swear we're going to end up there eventually. But these red orbs, I'm sure you've seen them. They're very, just sticking out. They have big red columns sometimes, depending on how you look at them. And these are also actually a source of items. And so I thought it would be poignant to discuss those while we were talking about chests. So this is called a shrine. That's probably going to get a new visual aspect eventually, but this is what we've got right now. And so it looks really spooky, but when you walk up close, you can activate it, just like you can open a chest. It's going to play an animation. Once I activate it, it's going to have a timer, and once that timer times down all the way, it's going to sort of explode. That explosion doesn't deal any damage, it's just visual and audible to attract people to the fact that you've opened it. And it'll drop some sweet loot. So you see this activating in, and then it's going to count down. It's got like a big glowy orb. So if I was at a distance, I could see that this had been activated, whereas that one had not been, as like a visual thing. So this is relevant to gameplay. You can just see where people might have been because you see that they've activated a thing. And so once this pops, and that's a very audible sound, you'll get so this is a legendary item, and I'll go into item rarities. But this is an item specifically, not a general object. This is an item. This is an amulet. It's a necklace. It goes in your item slots. And so this is a legendary rarity item because it's orange, and so they won't always be legendary, but I think that they will always be epic or higher, and that'll make more sense in a sec when we go over rarities. But so basically, shrines will always drop a really rare-ish strong item, and they can also sometimes drop skill points, which are part of the leveling system, which we'll go over in a second. Cool. So those also, just a quick more fun facts about shrines. Shrines vary in the amount of loot they drop based on the game mode you're playing. In solos, they will always drop just one thing. In duos, they'll drop two things, and in squads, it seems kind of inconsistent, but they drop like two, 4 things. So 2, 3, or 4. I'm not sure exactly what makes it happen. It might be like the proximity of your team, but yeah. So that's how shrines work. Now, finally, I swear, no matter what I think of, we're going to end up in that dang zone to go look over some items and rarities, etc. See you in a sec. Mwah. Woo! We finally made it! So this on the island is sort of the area or repository where there's literally every single item that's in the game is present here. So we'll go over all the types in a second, but quickly you can see a bunch of different colors going on here. So I'll explain what each of those are. So right here in front of us, you'll see these 5 different colors, and so those are all 5 of the rarities that exist in the game at the moment. So over there you've got the white color, and so that's going to be your common rarity. It's the most frequently occurring. When you open a chest, you're most likely to find common items. Green are also fairly common. They're called uncommon items. Then you've got rare items in blue, epic items in purple, and legendary items in this sort of orangey gold. So that's the rarities. Now let's go through and look at all the different items that we can get. And so right here you've got your amulets. Amulets do a variety of things. Let's look at some real quick. So you've got your student amulet is a good example of sort of the types of things you can do. So you've got just increases spell damage by 5%. These really passive effects. Specifically, amulets will usually affect things related to your spells, so like your attacks. This is going to increase your casting speed. This one's going to sort of increase your casting speed even further. So you'll also see that sometimes, yeah, you can see a bunch of them over here actually. You'll see that things scale, right? So here you'll see the Nimble Amulet increased by 15%. The Epic version increases by 30%. So it's just much stronger. But it does like basically the same thing. Similarly, Knowledge Amulet here you see has 25%, and there's a blue version, yep, Amulet of the Mind over here, is going to do max mana by 50. Then you've got some random effects as well, but generally that's sort of how things work. They'll affect your spells, they'll give you some little passive benefits. Let's go over to the boots. So boots are going to do things like this, where they affect your movement. So a lot of them will also not only increase your speed, but affect how you interact with things created by spells on the ground. So, for instance, there's a type of spell we'll go over in a bit called the Toxic spell. Using the Toxic Gauntlet, it'll leave puddles on the ground which deal you damage over time, but if you're wearing rubber boots, you don't take that damage. Lightning can create some static charged fields which can stun you, making you not able to cast spells and things for a bit. But grounding boots will make you immune. But then you've also got more straightforward things like Boots of the Cat, which will just increase your jump velocity, or Boots of the Scribe, which will situationally give you some more speed. Belts now. Belts are a bit finickier. They just give you... they are things that affect your runes, and things that affect your tankiness, like how durable you are. So you've got some fairly plain ones, like the... Student's Belt, which will reduce damage that you take by 5%. Things like the Armored Belt, which increase your maximum armor, and we'll go over what armor is in a sec. It's just an extra HP bar, basically. So your Armored Belt increases your maximum armor, so you've got like a hard limit on how much armor you can wear, but this increases it. Belt of Constitution just gives you more HP straight away. There's a couple of combo belts, like the Belt of Fire and Ice, and all of these are going to make you take reduced damage from specific sources. Then some of the rarer belts, like the Impenetrable Belt, will give you just like flat damage reduction. But then you've got some funny effects. Everyone's got like a funny effect or two. Like you saw the reactive amulet back there did like a weird thing. The slaking belt also is sort of a weird thing. It has to do with survival though, so it sort of makes sense. You'll consume potions much faster and also gain more healing from them. Um, but then you've got ones that affect your runes as well, like the Belt of Runic Fluency, and there was also the Belt of Runic Fluency gives you extra casts basically of each of your runes. And that might make a little bit more sense once you see some examples of runes. But generally, most runes you can only cast once, and that has a cooldown. Belt of Runic Fluency will allow you to cast them multiple times before they have to cool down. Um, and then you've got a weaker version of that as well, the Belt of Runic Study. In all three of the item types, you've got belts that sort of scale, so like a lower rarity that just does strictly less than a higher rarity version of itself. So Belt of Runic Fluency and Belt of Runic Study are an example of that. Similarly, Boots of Sprinting are just strictly better versions of Boots of the Scribe that we looked at earlier. So those are the three item types. Then you've got runes. So runes, they're going to be adding a bunch more of them apparently in the near future. But runes are all utility items. A lot of them are mobility, but some of them give you some odd effects that'll help you out. They're apparently going to be adding more of those odd support effects soon, but right now there's only really one main odd support effect. Right now you've mostly got mobility bits. So you've got these three are good or these four actually are good examples of mobility. Featherfall allows you to get a lot of verticality. So it'll like launch you high up into the air and you fall back down slowly, like it's saying here. Teleport lets you like travel a distance, but it has a longer cooldown, like a far distance, but it has a longer cooldown. Flight, you actually have to travel the distance yourself, but it makes you go faster and able to like maneuver yourself as if you were flying. You can go straight up into the sky. You can sort of control yourself. However, if you cast during the duration of flight, you will stop your flight if you cast any attacks. Or if you're hit, but it's pretty hard to hit someone while they're flying. Chronomaster is a bit finicky, but technically still mobility. It's a little bit survivability as well. It'll teleport you to the location that you were 4 seconds ago, and then begin to heal you back up to that state. If you had taken damage since then, you'll heal over the course of, it says, 4 seconds here. Back, you'll gain armor that you've lost and HP that you've lost over the course of those 4 seconds, unless you get hit. Then you've got some quicker mobility runes. The Shadow Step rune will teleport you over a middling distance, like a medium distance, and make you invisible. So you'll be invisible for probably like 4 or 5 seconds after you do the teleportation. Blink is the only example of a rune that starts with charges without having an extra belt or something on. And so you can get 3 charges of it before it goes on cooldown. But it teleports you over a much shorter distance. It's pretty cool. And I'll show you an example of a couple of these so you can get sort of a visual sense of what they actually do instead of just me saying. And then Wolf's Blood will allow you to see enemies and your allies actually through walls over the course of 40 seconds. But of course at the cost of having a more mobile rune in your rune slot because you can only have the one rune at a time. You can switch them from your inventory, like I said, but if you switch them in, they'll immediately go on cooldown before you can use them, so you can't just use them straight away. So having a Wolf's Blood rune in the actual game is beneficial because it gives you a lot more information about where enemies might be, especially in like closed little like ruins or something. But it's at the detriment of not being nearly as mobile as someone who has a Flight rune or a Blink rune, let's say. So let's pop on a couple of these runes and take a look at how they actually function. So the Blink rune you can see over here in the corner is gaining that little number. And so that's each of its 3 charges charging up. And once we hit 3, it'll max out, unless we equip one of those belts. And so I'm just going to blink, and we're going to go and teleport us from right there. So it's a pretty short distance, but in combat, I could dodge things with this. I could go up a structure like this. So I could, right now, I can double jump. Anyone can double jump without anything equipped. But I can't climb all the way to the top of this. However, with a Blink rune, I can get up to it easily. And if I'm in combat, I could be running from someone. They won't be able to chase me as easily. If there's someone up here that I want to attack, I could get up here quickly. Or simply, if there was some loot up here that I wanted, I could get up here much more easily than having to walk around and find like a staircase, probably on the far side. Yeah, so that's the Blink rune for you. You can also blink straight up, like I was doing, or straight down. You can blink in any direction, and then it's going to go on cooldown. Blink has a relatively short cooldown. But some of them will have much longer cooldowns. We'll see that in a sec. And so let's look at the Shadow Step then in comparison. So instead of that 3-second cooldown, you've got a 15-second cooldown. But you've got a little bit more Oh, so here's our buddy. We'll see him again in a bit when we're practicing with the attacks. So he's just a practice dummy. People obviously look more like my character model, but he'll be our enemies for our purposes here. And so the Shadow Step rune will take you a much farther distance and make you invisible temporarily, but it has a much longer cooldown and only one charge base. So let's look. So we teleported all the way from that rock down to here. It's probably like at least 3 times as far. And then we were invisible for a while. You saw how we were sort of clear. We would look exactly like that to our enemies as well. So we're not entirely invisible, but we're much, much harder to see. So for like running through cover, or it's a sort of foggy area, because there are some foggy areas on the actual map, being invisible like this would help a lot. It'd be much, much harder to see me while I'm like sort of faint glowy blue than this full like actual character model. And then I'm not sure if Wolf's Blood will actually reveal those guys. Oh, oops. I'm not sure if Wolf's Blood will actually reveal those guys to us, but we'll try it. Worst case, you can see the animation. They just recently added an animation to it starting, and it's really cool. Wolf's Blood always made this really loud howl, and so you could sort of tell when people had vision of you because they'd make this loud howl and you knew they cast a Wolf's Blood and you could try and run away. It does have a limited range. Me and Andy have tested this, and the range is roughly the distance of the minimap down here in the corner. So when I howl, it makes this cool visual effect. So unfortunately, it doesn't illuminate him. But so normally, if that was an enemy, he'd be like glowing blue, and I could see him even if I like ran through this wall. I would be able to see him standing where he is, but I can't show you what it actually does. But so it has that cool visual effect, and then the loud noise, and other people can see and hear that. Enemies, allies can see and hear that, so people can try and play around the fact that you have vision in a much larger radius than them. So they won't be able to hide. They'll have to try and be offensive or flee. So also you can see this sort of white rim around the rune. So that's a visual cue for the cooldown. It's also got a number now. It didn't used to. But that shows you once that runs out, the duration's over, it goes on cooldown, I would no longer have the effect. Yeah, so that's sort of how those basic types work. The others sort of do exactly what they say, exactly what they sound like. If you want, I can go and show you the rest of the runes in a future thing, but that's what we're going to do for now. Now you sort of know how runes work. So here now we've got really our bread and butter in the game. These are our weapons. So we've not got guns, we've got gloves, lovely magic gloves. And so you've got 6 types at the moment. You've got the ice, you've got the fire, you've got the earth, wind, lightning, and toxic. Very elemental bits. They are going to add more, they've said, in the future. This is what we're starting off with. So I'll walk you through actually what each of these does, and but quickly I'm going to tell you how they change over rarity. So obviously these are all 5 the same thing, but they have different rarities still. So each gauntlet has 2 different effects. You have a basic attack, which varies from spell to spell. They'll all look different, have sort of different effects. And then you've also got a sorcery. The spells will take this bar above our HP, this blue bar you see. So the red one obviously is our HP. The one above it is our mana. Each of the gauntlets, their basic attack is going to cost mana. The mana varies both by gauntlet and by rarity. The rarer, the cheaper the mana cost. Different gauntlets are just balanced by their mana cost. So if a gauntlet is like stronger at the base level, like it deals more damage at the base level, it'll cost a little bit more mana too. So that's the limiter on your basic attacks. Once you run out of mana, you have to let it recharge before you can cast some more. The sorceries, however, are a secondary effect. They also vary by gauntlet. They're a little flashier, potentially a little more destructive as well, which is nice. They'll really be like a heavy hit or a really strong utility for you, but they are going to cost not cost your mana, sorry, but have a cooldown. They'll have a cooldown, and if it's a stronger effect, it'll have a longer cooldown. What changes by rarity? That's what I was going to go into. So what changes by rarity is the amount of damage they deal. The basic attack is going to deal more damage. The sorcery will not actually be affected by rarity. The sorcery is going to have the same damage and the same cooldown no matter the rarity. So rarity only affects the basic attack. The effect is going to be a mana cost reduction, like I said, and damage increase. So that's really the only effects of rarity. So having rare items, rare gauntlets, rarer gauntlets are going to be better just because they're going to deal more damage, and also you'll be able to cast more attacks before you run out of mana. So we're going to walk through. I'm going to pick up one of each of these, and we're going to walk through what each of the attacks looks like on our enemy over here. So I'm just using common gauntlets for now, just because, I don't know, they were right there. So they're all going to deal the basic damage for a common gauntlet. If you want me to, I can go into more detail about the specific increments. Each of them differs by like a different number, so it's not like they each increase by like 10% damage per rarity. All of them are different. But if you want me to go through like the damage scaling of ice or the damage scaling of fire, the damage scaling of earth, I can do that in a future video as well. Please ask, I can go into more depth about how they scale over rarity. But for now, let's look at how the attacks function. So ice is going to be sort of a snipey boy. It has a little bit of drop, but it travels over a long distance very quickly. So I could do it from up close, but I'm going to do it from a bit farther away, and you'll see. It's like a sort of a sniper shot. You charge it up, kind of like you're drawing back a bow, and then you loose a bolt of ice. And as you charge it, it deals more damage. So 45 is the maximum damage I can do, but if I only charge it a little bit and then shoot, it deals a smaller amount of damage. I think there are 5 increments of the charge, so if I fire it as quickly as possible, 11 damage, 13, 15... Actually, no, I guess it scales more significantly than I thought. So yeah, every like quarter of a second or so that you charge it further, it'll deal a little bit more damage, up until the maximum charge when you're all the way zoomed in. So you can hit this from quite far away. I'll try and... I feel like there was a practice dummy somewhere over there. I don't see him, but like you can see a little spot left behind. So that travels quite far, as you can see. But it does have a little bit of drop, so over the distance, if I wanted to shoot there, I'd probably aim a little higher. And it'll hit the spot I intended. So that's how the icy bit works. Then, before it goes on cooldown, let's go look at its sorcery. Because when you swap off your gauntlets, you can use their basic attacks straight away, but the sorcery goes on cooldown. Oh, also, look at the mana bar real quick. So as I cast, it's going to, no matter the charge, take 25 of my mana. So I can cast 4 ice shots in rapid succession before I have to let it recharge. Also, a quick thing we'll examine, just I'll spam these off, and you'll see if I let it go only part of the way down, it'll charge up pretty quickly. And I can still cast, obviously, because I still have a little bit of mana left. But if I let it recharge all the way, then it'll be back to 100 much faster than if I let it go all the way, it'll take a little bit longer. I'll be in this recharging animation, and it takes 2 whole seconds to come back. Instead of, this is a much faster partial charge. Cool, so let's do the ice sorcery. Oh, also of note, this ice left on the ground, it will be slippery. Just a fun little thing. In combat, that can be relevant. There are a couple things that interact with this. We can go into all the spell interactions I want in this video. That's sort of one of the things that made the other video take so long. But so, for instance, I'll show you one quick thing, just so you understand like how spell interactions work. So really niche little things like this can be a spell interaction. So I've left ice on the ground. It's melted into water because I've left it sitting there for long enough. And now if I hit it with a fireball, it'll turn to steam, which will damage you over time. Really neat stuff. So even like little tiny detailed bits like that can turn into a spell interaction. So fire can also travel quite far, although it travels rather slowly, so someone could just easily walk out of the way. Usually people use it at mid to low range, so like somewhere like here would be a fair distance for it. You could definitely fight someone from here with fireballs, but it'd be harder to hit them. It'd be easier for them to run away because it's a fairly slow traveling projectile. So it shoots up just a ball of fire, and the ball of fire will deal 30 damage, and then also it'll deal a little bit of a radius. So if I hit him a little farther, here it won't hit, but here it'll hit him for partial damage, like right here. Or if I hit him directly, full 30. So if there are like 2 allies next to each other, I could hit one of them with a full fireball and the other one will take partial damage. The fireballs are going to take 25 as well. Not all spells take 25, unless they've changed that. I might have just totally misled you and they all take 25 now, but as far as I'm aware, they don't. So this will deal a little bit less damage than the fully charged ice, obviously, but it's much faster to fire. So everything has its ups and downsides. Wind, let's swap one, and lightning as well. So wind is sort of a charge up. So not the charge up in the same way as the ice, but the first cast is going to have that little wind up, you see. Like it takes a little while to cast it, but then after that, I can cast them rather quickly. This is dealing much less damage, but it also takes less mana. You see, it only takes 13 mana? Math? But it only deals 10 damage, so I can spam out quite a few of them, potentially. This doesn't leave anything on the ground like the ice does, but it does have a secondary effect. So air is a lot of utility, because it gives you some mobility without having to use a rune, and I'll show you how. So if I shoot my feet, I fly up into the air. Really cool stuff. So I could bounce up to this like I have a Blink Rune, no problem. Or I could get some ups and then attack from the air and hover a bit. So that's sort of what air has to offer. Everything sort of has some sort of secondary effect, right? So fire doesn't like leave fire on the ground straight off, but there are some buffs you can get to it that make it. But it has that little AoE. Ice has the leaving ice trails on the ground. That's both an advantage because it can make the slippery terrain that's hard to traverse, but it's also a detriment because it leaves this trail directly back to you. So if you're sniping from a distance, you sort of give yourself away. It forces people to play around moving and not just standing in one place sniping. Like, it makes it more fun to play against. Lightning, you've got this volley, so you're going to shoot off 3 bolts. If you're moving, they scatter a little bit more. Harder to aim. If I'm standing perfectly still, it's really easy to hit all 3 of them. So each of them is going to do 9, but if you hit with all 3, you've dealt 26? No, I'm bad. 27. So the thing with lightning is it travels totally straight, but it has a bit of a spread. So I could hit someone from almost anywhere on the map with this, theoretically. It travels rather quickly too, but I'll only hit them for a very small amount of damage. So it's best used in mid-range to close range, so you can burst them with the full volley. It's highly accurate and travels really quickly, though. So if someone's like awkwardly flying in the air, it might be really hard to hit them with this like slow-moving fireball, but it could be really easy to hit them with a 3 volley while you're just standing there shooting at them. So that's sort of the trade-off. It can also electrify things. So like if we still had that pool of water on the ground, we could do a lot of interactions with lightning. We'll like make these pretty much any like elemental effect that's lingering. If you hit it with lightning, it'll keep the elemental effect going, but it'll also make this sort of stunning field around. And while you're stunned, you can't do spells, you can't do runes, you can't do most things except walk and run. So it's really limiting. It's a good way to like shut people down who are really bursting you. So that's the utility that lightning offers. So now let's look at the sorceries. So sorceries are really cool for these two. They're oh shit, you know, I said we're gonna look at the sorceries for the other two, and then I swapped them off and didn't actually show you. So we'll do these ones, and I'll go back to the first 2, and then we'll go to the last 2 runes. Fuck. I mix up the words in this game so often. Like, literally, anytime I play this game, I'll be trying to communicate something to, like, Andy or something, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I found a wind rune on the ground. He's like, a wind rune? There's no wind rune. I mean, a gauntlet. So I apologize for the confusing languagey bits. The Wind Gauntlet's sorcery makes this is the maximum range of it, or I can place it on top of me if I'd like. It deals damage to me as well as anyone in the radius. And it's a spooky, windy boy. So you've got this cool tornado. It's really, really pretty. If you get close to it, it'll sort of suck you in a bit. I'll cast it again on him and show you the sucky effect. Give me a sec. So, boop-a-doop, 3, 2, 1. So yeah, that's the sorcery cooldown shown there. And so it'll deal him damage over time. It'll also pull you in. If you stand within sort of the range, it'll pull you into the center, and then once you're in the center, it'll deal you damage. Lightning is Big Circle Boy. This is the maximum range. If I cast it, it places sort of this circle down, and then we'll start dropping these bolts. The bolts don't hit the entire radius, as you can see. They drop in specific spots, so he theoretically could have been inside the circle and not been hit once. But it puts down a zone, basically, and if you stand in the zone, you will have a good chance of taking some amount of damage. So each of these little circles is a damaging zone. And so you see they hit almost every location inside the circle. So like standing inside the circle is not a good idea. It's great if someone's just like standing there and wailing on you. You can try and get them to like run a bit or move out of the way. It has a bit of range on it, so if there's like a sniper on this hill, I could try and place this where he is and force him to move away from his location while I push on him with something that's closer range. So now let's go back to the fire and ice so I can show you what those sorceries do. Ice, you can see, has a very long cooldown compared to the other ones. That is because it is theoretically a really strong effect. It's a very powerful utility, and they don't want you to be able to spam it a bunch. It doesn't actually deal damage, but what it will do is, and I don't think you can actually see this on him, it'll do a radius around you, and I'll show you. So I can't aim this. This is the maximum range. It just goes immediately around me. And I'll make this circle, and then everything within the circle gets frozen. So not myself. I'm immune. But if he was standing inside the circle, he would have been frozen solid. It also freezes the ground, so I could hit it with like this and make it water, and then steam, etc. I'll show you the lightning effect as well. So this is the lightning effect. And now I'm stunned. I can't use my spells. Um, but so while he's frozen, he cannot move. He's completely unable to move. He can't use runes. He can't use gauntlets. But if he takes damage while he's still frozen, he'll only take half that damage and the ice will be broken. So you can't just like set up a super sick snipe exactly, but it will wear out by itself. He'll thaw. So if you know exactly the amount of time it takes to thaw, you could freeze someone, walk away a bit, charge your, like, line up your shot, and then the moment he unthaws, hit him for full damage. Or you could just use it, someone's on you, you're a ranged character, you're trying to snipe, someone gets on you with a melee attack, you freeze them and run the fuck off, and then try and snipe them some more later on. Or just, like, flee. It's a great way to just get out of combat, you know? So that's what we've got there. Now let's look at the Earth and the Toxic. Earth is my favorite. Toxic I'm not very good at, but it's really cool. So I'll show you how the Toxic one works first. So the Toxic is going to throw these 4 little dots out, and then as you can see here, you've got these puddles. These puddles are going to deal you 4 damage when you stand in them. And it lasts quite a while. This can also be affected. You can do a couple of different inter-elemental combinations with that. The lightning, as I said, would work, and a couple other cool things. So, like I said, this will deal damage over time, but also if I hit him with bits of this, each of these is going to deal 11, so you're seeing 44 because I'm hitting him with all 4. If I walk a bit farther back, it's going to be increasingly hard to hit him with all 4. I hit him with 3, I hit him with 3, I hit him with 1 of them only there, I hit him with 1 of them. So this one, the mana, it only takes 20, so I can hit 5 of these. Because it's a little harder to hit, you know? At range, it's very difficult. Like, if someone was standing over there, I'm trying to hit that one spot right in the middle of my reticle, it's just going all over the fucking place. It'd be so difficult to hit someone from this far away. Even at mid-range, where I would be fighting with fireballs or lightning, I can barely hit people with this acid. But at close range, it deals way more damage than either of the attacks we've seen so far, or any of the attacks we've seen so far. There are things hitting for, like, this is a full charged ice shot, but I can do it instantly, and I can do it twice in a row rather quickly. As you can see, I've got 100 HP. The armor bar, which I'll show you in a bit, also only goes up to 100 base. So someone can theoretically have only 200. The armored belt we saw gives you up to 300 effective HP. But, like, if I have 200 HP, I could shred someone like this rather quickly, compared to the other spells anyways. Like, it deals a massive amount of damage, but I have to be really up close to use it effectively. The Earth spell deals a lot of damage, costs a fair amount of mana. The downside is, it can only, if I'm in the air, I could cast Acid. If I'm in the air, I cannot cast Earth. It will not resolve until I hit the ground. And that's your Earth spell. It's a little bit slow moving, but it's a trail along the ground. As you can see, it also takes only 20. It deals a lot of damage, but it's severely limited. If someone's flying in the air, I literally cannot kill them. I cannot hit them with the Earth. It's impossible for me to hit them. It does have a little bit, you see how it sort of bounces? The entirety of that visual effect will deal damage. So if they're like just 1 jump off the ground, it'll be high enough to hit them. But if they're even 2 jumps off the ground, it's unlikely it'll hit them. So let's look at the damage. So no matter where I hit them, I can hit them with the edge of it, I can hit them straight in the middle, I can hit them from up close or far away, and it'll deal 30. It's fairly like long range. I'll stand on this flat ground, you'll see. It's a fairly long range, about as far as like a fireball can conveniently hit. So it's another mid-range attack. Most of them are. It's going to hit for 30, which is a good amount. I can hit it 5 times just straight back to back without worrying about it. Some aspects of terrain will break it, like this rock might mess it up depending on the angle. These trees, if I hit this tree, it's not going to go through the tree. So it's finicky. It's hard to use, but anyone's going to have to land eventually. You will be able to find a moment. It all takes coordination. The thing I really love about the Earth, though, is its sorcery. I find it extremely handy in combat. It's got really good range on it. It makes up for the medium range of the Earth spell. It's got an AoE damage radius. It's a bit slow. It's really interesting, but I like it a lot. It's just fun. I have a lot of fun trying to get good with it. So as you can see, it's an arch. I can throw it really, really far, theoretically, or I can throw it fairly close to myself. What it'll do is it'll launch a boulder. Hilarious. It gets larger. You sort of saw it like flicker near the end. It gets larger over time. As it grows, it deals more damage, and the radius in which it can deal damage also grows. So the farther I hit someone with it, the more effective it is. It can hit for up to 50 damage. If I'm really close, though, you'll see I missed that guy from right up close because the boulder was so small and its radius was so small. The cooldown as compared to the others, is actually quite short as well. You saw it was only like a 10 or so second cooldown. But if I hit him from like over here, hits him for 35. That's more than my basic attack. And there are a variety of things that can increase or decrease the cooldown rather as well. A number of amulets decrease the cooldown of your sorceries specifically. So I can get this down really low and use it very, very frequently. So let's get even farther a bit away. And it's cool because I could be down here. He can't even see me. And I can try and hit him. I think this might do. No, I super missed actually. But theoretically, I can hit someone from over a wall. Let's let it go. So I can see him now, but like I can hit people from over walls in theory. I just have to not be trash. So I'm not showing off my skills very well. Normally I use one of the runes, the Featherfall rune, to give myself height as well, so I can get a better vantage and see what I'm actually aiming at. But let's hit him with a full range one, so you can see how much a fully charged one is going to deal a massive amount of damage. It's going to hit for a full 50. That's 45, almost fully charged. Boop. Yeah, so this should be full range. And that's 50. 50 to armor, 50 to HP, whatever they're on, it'll deal them 50. Right now, I'm at 48 HP. If someone hit me with one of those, I would just straight die. That's a lot of damage. As you saw, like, this is only 44. Again, the sorcery doesn't actually scale with increased rarity, but 50 damage is good. And the fact that it doesn't scale with rarity means I could pick up a common stone golem and still be hitting people for 50s, which is pretty strong in the grand scheme of things. So I think that's all I can really show you here. Oh, that's totally not true. So one other mechanic is important, and this is a thing that would take a long time to go into great depth about, but I can if you'd like. So I'm going to do a cursory intro to this bit, and then you tell me if you want to know more. So this screen here, I just press B. It says at the bottom, you've seen this the whole time, press B to choose class. I bet you were wondering what that means. So here we go. Your class, you get to choose 2 of them. Your class, you get to choose a new set of 2 each match. You can choose the same ones you did last time. You can mix it up. You can pick them for the circumstance. You can pick them for fun. There's no rhyme or reason to why you have to pick them. There's some strategy behind it that you can choose to employ. But these are your classes, and so you get to pick 2 of them. If you only pick one of them, it'll still give you some effects, but you won't get the maximal benefits of having them. Basically, when you pick a class, I'll show you here, you see you've got these 4 little bits. So you don't get all 4 of them straight away. When you pick one of them, you get the top one straight off. That's your passive. You get it straight away. It doesn't scale over the course of the game. You just get it. So if I were to pick Bulwark, I'd get Fortify, which would give me the passive that if I have any armor attached, then I gain 5 armor up to my maximum for over 10 seconds. Every 10 seconds, I would gain 5 until I have 100. So it'll like regenerate me. They all do different things, but I'd have that passive. Just for picking Bulwark, I gain that passive. Then, over the course of the game, either by finding skill points, which is that glowing orb you see here to the right, or by touching zones, and I'll tell you what a zone is when we jump onto the real map in a second here. By touching zones, so basically zones occur over time. So as the game goes longer, you'll get more levels in classes, and as you get skill points from shrines, shrines drop skill points, like I said earlier. If you pick up a skill point, you immediately get a level. And so you don't get each of these in order is the trick. Once you pick both of your classes, I'll do that here so I can show you. I just picked 2 random classes. Whoops. And you get a skill point. You'll get this option here. So this option, as you can see, it's not just the next one. The next one would be this one. And I don't get both. I don't get levels in both of them. I have to pick. Basically, picking 2 classes gives me a pool of these 6 abilities. These 6 abilities, I'll get randomly given a choice between 2 of, one from each of the classes. And then every time I get a level, I get to make a new choice. It's completely random. These were selected arbitrarily. I can never maneuver, or I said maneuver because I saw Manivore here, but I can never like manipulate which ones I get. So if I have a build in mind that really requires me to get Lasting Burn, it's just luck that I got Lasting Burn. The way you can manipulate it is just by getting lots of points, basically. Each of these can only get to 3. You see these are both level 1, it says, but each of these can go to 3 levels. So theoretically, if I got like it's normal in a normal game, you'll get somewhere between like 3 and 9 skill points if you make it all the way to the end. Um, so conceivably, I could max out, like if I got really lucky and got the same one a bunch of times to choose from, I could max out 3 of my skills, 3 of my 6 skills. Because each of them can go to the third level, and once it gets to the third level, it won't show up in your choice anymore. So these two are random effects from this. So there, as we saw before, this other thing I'm just going to use real quick. This is not, it doesn't exist in the game, the class reset. At the moment, there's no way to find it. It just exists here, so you can test things. And that'll reset my classes. Now I have to choose them again. So as you can see here, we've got 12 different classes. They've actually just added this one recently. Each of them does different things. There's one for each of the 6 elements. Each of the 6 elemental ones will have some element-specific effects, as well as some just general benefits. So like for instance in Pyromancer you see there are ones that make you immune to taking damage from fire, there are ones that make your fire stronger. Stone Shaper gives you some effects specifically related to your, like Rock Slide immediately directly affects your spell effects. Then you've also got some strange ones like Zealot, Scout, and Scholar that don't have an orientation specifically affiliated with a element. They just give you some general benefits. So like Scholar is specifically all working around your runes and general utility. Runic Inspiration is a support ability. It gives you a benefit, but it also gives your teammates, if you're playing in a duos or squads format, your teammates around you a benefit. Careful Study gives you some vision, so just like general utility. Scavenger helps you loot items better. Crack Shot's just for like increasing your damage, basically. Scout gives you some utility, and Zealot gives you some like weird mixes of things. Bulwark again is sort of tankiness. And so I could go into all of these in depth. If you want me to, please ask. I'm happy to discuss them with you or make a little video. But that's sort of how this system works. All of them have a lot of nuance. There's a lot of strategy around which ones you want to choose in which situations, which ones are strong when you want to choose utility over just raw damage, etc. They all have some really cool effects, and I'd be happy to explain what the different effects are, show you some of them if you'd like. But that's the class system. So I think I've super bugged this thing out. You see it spazzing on my screen. That's just in the class reset thing. Like I said, it doesn't exist in the games. They've not like spent a lot of time coding it properly, I guess. So when you reset your class, it fucks up your button. Anyhow, that's all I can really show you here. I think I'm actually, this has already gone on pretty long, so I'll leave it there. That's a good intro. I can show you the full map if you'd like. I can show you more depth about spell interactions. I can show you more depth about classes. Please, if you're interested, tell me. This is the introduction to Spellbreak. I'm happy to jump into a game, show you how a game looks. Whatever you'd like. Please, I'm happy to share this with you. I really enjoy this game a lot. I don't get to play it terribly often, just because we've been so busy. But I've been having a lot of fun with the little bit I have gotten to play. I'm looking forward to its continuing development. The staff on board, like developing this game, seem really enthused. The community is really nice. It's just got a lot of what am I looking for? There's a word. A lot of potential. It's a lot of potential to be a really wonderful game. So yeah, this is something I've been passionate about recently. It's been a pleasure sharing it with you. I hope this is a little more concise than the last video. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. And please, again, come to me in person or via making another video with questions. Sorry, that was confusing. You don't need to make me a video with questions. Please come to me and tell me if there are things you want to talk about. I'd be happy to show you in person, like actually demonstrate. You're welcome to play a game or two. You're welcome to try it yourself. Or I can make a little video for you, talk with you, theorycraft, like whatever. I really enjoy this game. Happy talking about it. I've said the same thing a bunch of times. I'm just trolling now, I guess. You got the point of what I was meaning to say. I would love to show you more of this in whatever format you'd like. So please tell me what you're interested in. Is what I was trying to say for the past 5 minutes. Sorry, my brain is going like a mile a minute now because I was trying to rush all that stuff in. Anyhow, thank you for joining me. That's all for now. I'm excited to potentially show you more Spellbreak. I love you so much. This is a lot of fun to make. Everything is really pretty, and you're really pretty. Yay! My brain is fried. Maybe I should try making scripts for things like this. I don't know. I think it's more fun and more adorable when I don't, though, so I'll probably just not. Tell me what you think. I'll see you next time. Bye.